The promise I can make for this video is modest, but since attention is the currency of this platform, and you're being asked to spend it, I'll name the return as clearly as I can. What you'll encounter here is not a solution, not a breakthrough, but an access point, a way into one of the deepest technical fractures in the modern concept of meaning. Not the surface play of signs, nor the statistical mimicry of reference, but the ontological structure of significance itself. What makes something meaningful in a rich, hypothetical, anticipatory sense. The space where provisional beliefs live, where doubts are structured, where existential commitments arise. This is the side of meaning that isn't about identifying chickens with other chickens, or translating terms through numerical equivalents. It's about what we live inside when we trust a proposition, or when we fear that our concepts will fail us. What we call understanding is not merely an operation. It is an ontological category we reserve for that moment, when the mind grasps more than syntax, more than rule. It names that convergence of thought, where a proposition becomes charged, enriched by scientific scaffolding, imagined consequences, layered intuitions. To understand P is not simply to accept it, it is to sense the weight of what P commits us to. It is a quiet wager on the inferential future of P. Will it hold when non-P presses in? Will it survive contradiction or collapse under the pressure of a better syntax, a sharper conceptual map, a more brutal empirical correction? Understanding is not about what P says today, but whether it will still mean tomorrow, and whether we will still be able to mean ourselves through it. When we fear that our concepts will fail us, it is because we no longer trust their ability to organize the next moment. Because when the time came, P could not carry us across the bridge it once seemed to build. Frege called it sense, Carnap, intention. Quine dismantled it, reducing all to the assignable values of variables. That's the promise. Would you take it? Now, the argument. If meaning is instantiated mechanically, according to fixed rules, axioms, and tolerances, as Carnap envisioned in his formalist optimism, then we inherit not only a system of linguistic rigor, but a profound erosion of conceptual hierarchy. The very difference between an ontologically rich identity, Pegasus is a winged horse, and a shallow empirical equivalence, creatures with kidneys are creatures with hearts, dissolves into procedural indifference. The machine makes no metaphysical distinction. It runs the program. I know. It's an argument I've made before, perhaps too many times. Repetition may be a poor substitute for clarity, but sometimes nuance needs a second voice, a different angle, another point of entry, especially when the issue refuses to go away. If this hasn't struck you yet as a genuinely philosophical problem, I suggest you stay a little longer with it. Some formulations might fail to convince. Others might resonate, phenomenologically even, as they meet your own experience halfway. What I'm daring to say is this: the problem isn't relevant merely because it defines a crisis of meaning. It's relevant because it exposes meaning's operational face. Meaning, if it is to be grasped, presupposes a bed of ontological richness, the kind of richness a machine does not recognize, and worse, does not miss. And perhaps we don't either. For if we ourselves are machine-like in our neural economies, then we too may have no access to the difference between believing P and simply executing it. And in that confusion, the crisis reaches into our most basic concepts: understanding, consciousness, and what it means to know what one is saying, when one prefers or defends. And this, perhaps, is the deeper layer. Not all beliefs are equal. Even when two individuals assent to P, they may stand in radically different relations to it. One simply operates P, as one might flip a switch or accept a definition. The other trusts P, not as a static content, but as a trajectory. To believe, in this fuller sense, is to feel the future inferential life of a proposition, to know, or at least sense, that P will not abandon you when consequences emerge, that P will cohere with what matters when the next implication arrives. This difference between using P and committing to P is not detectable in the surface syntax. It is not instantiated mechanically. A machine can assent to both with the same indifferent circuitry. It can apply modus ponens, instantiate quantifiers, generate valid consequences, but it cannot feel the tension of relying on P as a premise upon which a life, a theory, or a moral position depends. When that difference vanishes, when all beliefs are rendered flat, functionally indistinct, we lose our grip not just on what it means to understand a proposition, but on what it means to be responsible for it. To say P in such a regime is not to position oneself, but merely to route a signal. No risk is felt, no loyalty is owed, and so the erosion continues, not just of the analytic-synthetic divide, but of the gradients of commitment that once gave belief its human texture. Trust, doubt, certainty, anticipation. These are not syntactic forms. They are phenomenological modulations in our relation to meaning. And in a machine that instantiates P without weight, without worry, they simply do not exist.